Hi guys, Blake here with Lilley's Landing Resort and Marina on beautiful upper Lake Taneycomo. It is Sunday the 21st of March, and I'm going to do the one cast for you today. Okay, let's see. Today I've boated up here. I'm starting right here in the Point Royale flat. Normally you wouldn't have a boat here, but they are still running. 5 floodgates and 15,000 CFS. I looked at the graph they had the other day on the app, and it looks like Table Rock is starting to flow out a little bit, but it's not at a very fast pace. It's still above 917 at the moment. I don't know if they'll turn the generators off after it gets to 917 or if they'll drop it all the way to 915, but either way, the drop rate's not very fast right now. I'm going to start off fishing kind of up here in this eddy water that's created by the floodgates. I'm starting off with an 1/8 ounce black and white Lilley's jig. A beautiful day here on the lake. We've got, I don't know, it's got to be pretty close to 70 degrees, maybe just a little bit under. The wind is still here. We've had pretty heavy winds every day for about a week now, but those haven't gone anywhere at all. It seems like maybe the water is warming up a little bit, getting better fishing reports. Still hearing reports of it being tough for a lot of people. A little slow. Nothing on the first cast there. But I believe that they stocked down at somewhere by the landing. I've been hearing good reports from Monkey Island all the way down past the Fast Pro Fish House. Been hearing good reports in the creeks. People using pink power worms, spoons, jigs, night crawlers. And I'm gonna pinch off just a little bit of my tail here. You can do that. If you ever think your tail feathers are just a little too long, you can just grab it and just rip off that end that you don't want. There we go. It's a little shorter. Oop, I missed some. I passed a couple guys on the way up here that said that they had been catching some on our jigs today. They were drifting out in front of the dock jigging, but they said that they had done really well kind of down by closer to Monkey Island past Cooper Creek. Victor, I think he was out with his family. I just passed them a second ago, not very long ago at all, and they said they had caught one nice fish on a white jig, and they're fishing kind of the same area where I'm fishing now. I know Seth Turner and Brad Reed were up here the other day, and Seth said they caught a little over 20 fish. And they were jigging, but he said that the key was to get that jig all the way down to the bottom. So I'm attempting to do my best here today. It's been a couple days since I threw a jig. something you can do whenever the water is this heavy is you can kind of just cast that jig up and let it sink down to the bottom and just kind of barely wiggle it off the bottom, almost like you're dragging it. And the few times I have been out in the last week, this black and white jig also seemed to do pretty good. So that's what I decided to start with tonight. Seth said he caught all of his fish on the white jig, which makes me think that, you know, I think it's possible that they have seen some shad. I just don't think they've seen a lot of shad. And Victor just said they caught their only fish so far, a nice one on a white jig as well. So that might just be the way to go, and get an 1/8 ounce and make sure you get it down to the bottom. One of the best ways to know you're on the bottom is just to wait until you feel that jig start to drag. Then you'll at least know you're in the general vicinity. I am using 2-pound tests today, which is going to help that jig sink down a little faster, but you could definitely be using 4-pound tests with how fast this water's running, and it might be better for tensile strength and being able to make sure you bring the fish in. I was fishing off the end of the dock the other day for just a couple minutes, and I hooked a really big brown trout, but I was stationary on the dock, and he came to the top and started rolling on top of the water, and it was just too much for that 2-pound test. So, hey, that feels like a fish. And I was really letting that thing hit the bottom. I mean, I was feeling the bottom, just kind of bouncing it up until I'd feel it hit the bottom again. This one's he's got some gumption. Oh yeah. So, hey, cut it out, buddy. That's a really healthy long rainbow there. Another thing that, at least I think, is happening, can't be 100% sure, but you know, this bend off of Point Royale creates slower water over here on this north bank, and I personally believe that these fish have got to be laying over here in the slower current, at least for parts of their day, to take a break. So and then even on the very edge of the bank over there, it's still pretty deep. I'm gonna turn my boat the other way here. Try to get out of that sun. Another thing that I rigged up, which I thought might work pretty good, was I got out one of my long spin cast rods and put a 1/16 ounce jig under a pretty good size indicator. And I think that would probably work pretty well too. I think I've heard a few of the guides doing that. Get a heavier jig, get a pretty good size indicator, and you can just put those 9 or 10 foot deep under the indicator and float them near the bottom. We're coming up. We just passed the tennis courts. Coming up on the golf course pretty fast. And I know that my jig is for sure hitting the bottom here. Not only can I feel it, but I can see my line swinging back behind me, which means it's catching the bottom and getting pulled that direction. I also know that it, once you get to the golf course here, this is a big flat, so it shallows up quite a bit in comparison to where we were just fishing at. And so I don't have to let it sink quite as long. I'm gonna scoot in real close to the edge over there. I want to work a couple casts on that edge just to see if there's any fish really packed in against the bank, which there have been times like last year when the floodgates were running and we'd drift the boat, 10 or 15 feet away from the bank, and you'd cast your jig or your flies to drag on the bottom right up against the bank and drag them right down this edge, and those fish would be holding up just right against the edge. So I'd like to come over here and just take a couple scouting casts and see if there's anything hiding directly against the edge. And then I'll turn around. I'm going to fish out towards the middle and work it back towards the flat. See if there's any fish holding out there. And it's not such a terrible thing if your line starts to get pulled back behind you. Like I said, you can kind of drag the jig and just give it little baby pops. You might find a couple fish doing that. Looked to me like the guys I talked to in the V-bottom boat looked like that's what they were kind of doing. They were kind of dragging the jigs, giving them little twitches. One more cast against the bank, and then I'm going out for the middle. Alright, well, let's try out in the middle. We'll have to let it sink a little bit longer out there. But as it gets closer to me, it's going to shallow up, so I can start working it a little faster then. The other thing, I mean, I know I talked about it the other day, but the other thing that was working decently well compared to how the fishing's been was throwing big shad colored jerk baits. You know, preferably ones that dive deeper, like the 110+1. But I mean, in a pretty short period of time, we did catch 6 or 7 fish, so. The wind has completely changed directions and is now blowing me down the lake. Coming up on the narrows. Actually, we're right at the top of the narrows now. I was definitely getting the bottom there. So the narrow shallows up significantly. Now I can work it a little bit faster. But it's probably still, I don't know, 8 or 9 foot deep right here over the top of the narrows. Get a little closer in here now, over there in the channel. And I think I've gotten rid of the sun enough to just keep the nose pointed forward here. That'll help me slow the boat down because of the direction the wind's pushing me. Okay. So as that wind blows my line, you see me kind of jigging really close to the water right now. I'm doing that because if that wind pushes that giant loop in my line, I'm holding it up here, it's not allowing that jig to sink down. So if you lay as much of your water, or as much of your line on the water as you can, that will keep that jig sinking better. That's one other thing. If I'm using a two-tone jig and the feathers get crossed, I like to pull it back in and make sure they're laying on top of each other and not mixed up. I don't really know if it makes a difference, but I think it does in my head, so. Coming up on, going towards the end of Eagle Island here. One of my favorite little flats on the lake. And there's a big seam that comes off of this log in the water, and I'm just gonna attempt to work my jig right in that seam line. Also, there's some water that when it's high enough like this, it flows back there into the island. I can only imagine that those fish set in front of it and collect food as it passes through to the other side of the island, and fish set on the other side of that as well and catch the food coming through. This is another one of those spots where occasionally when the water runs this fast, those fish will get right on the edge of the bank. So I'm gonna go in there and see if there's one in there. Oh, that was a taker. So as I said, I'm kind of laying that line on the water, and I saw the line just jet off. It's most likely a fish grabbing it. But if you're going to be coming out, I recommend any of the creeks, anywhere down by the landing. And if you want to come up here in the trophy area, I think jigs are a great choice, but you're just going to have to be patient and get them to the bottom and do a lot of casting. And the fishing has been a little slow. But I have seen and heard about quite a few nice fish being caught since the floodgates come on. And a lot of it was on white. Whether it was a white jig or a white mega worm or well, I think I'm gonna call it a day here. So we thank you guys for watching. Like and share us on Facebook and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't, and we'll get out here and do it again tomorrow. Thanks, guys.